The cell was small enough to make breathing feel like a crime. Concrete walls, flaking with damp, seemed to close in tighter each day, squeezing the life out of the 23-year-old who now lived inside them. They had stripped her name away when she entered the gates of Al-Haddar prison, the infamous fortress on the outskirts of Dubai. Here, she was not Elena Warren, bright-eyed law student from Liverpool, daughter, friend, dreamer, but just another inmate, another number in the records, another mistake the system fed upon. The guards called her the English girl, some with mockery, others with curiosity, none with mercy. Each night, as she lay on a thin mat shared with two others on the cracked cement floor, Elena replayed the moment her life shattered, the moment she trusted the wrong people, the moment she failed to see the trap snapping shut. Before the prison walls, before the life sentence, Elena's world had been ordinary. She was 23, with auburn hair that caught fire under the Liverpool street lamps and a laugh that carried through noisy pubs. Her friends teased her for being the lawyer-to-be, the one who couldn't help but debate with taxi drivers about traffic fines or challenge bartenders over short pours of Guinness. She had grown up in Huyton, one of those working-class corners of Liverpool where everyone knew everyone else's business. Her mother, Kathleen, raised her alone after her father disappeared when Elena was still in primary school. Money was always tight, but Kathleen worked 2 jobs, determined to see her daughter succeed. And succeed she did. Elena had made it into the University of Liverpool's law program, dreaming of one day working in human rights law. She wanted to defend the underdog, the forgotten, the wrongfully accused. But dreams, like glass, are fragile. It was supposed to be a holiday, a break before her final year at university. Her friend Layla Khan, glamorous, magnetic, and always surrounded by admirers, had suggested it over cocktails one summer night. Dubai, babe. Sun, beaches, rooftop bars, shopping, you deserve it. Forget the library. Let's live a little. Elena hesitated. Money was scarce, and she had promised her mum she wouldn't overspend. But Layla insisted, promising that her friends in Dubai could sort accommodation, that Elena wouldn't have to worry about anything. That night, Elena lay in bed staring at her cracked ceiling, her mind buzzing. Dubai. Exotic. Extravagant. So different from Huyton's brick terraces and rain-soaked streets. She told herself it would be just a week. A harmless adventure. She didn't know it yet, but that single yes would be the start of her ruin. Elena still remembered the thrill of stepping onto the Emirates flight. The seats smelled of leather. The cabin hummed with quiet luxury. She snapped selfies with Layla, both of them grinning, their drinks raised in celebration. Layla seemed to know everyone, even the flight attendants, who winked and slipped her extra champagne. Elena felt herself drifting into a world she didn't belong in, dazzled by the attention. When the plane descended over Dubai, she pressed her forehead against the window, staring at the golden city rising out of the desert like a mirage. Towers of glass and steel gleamed under the sun, defying nature itself. Felt untouchable, eternal. "Welcome to paradise," Layla whispered. But paradise has shadows, and Elena was already stepping into them. The first night in Dubai felt like stepping into a film set. Layla's friends had arranged a penthouse suite overlooking the shimmering city skyline. The balcony stretched out toward the Burj Khalifa itself, a needle of light piercing the night sky. Below, the highways flowed with endless streams of headlights, like veins pulsing through a giant. "Not bad, eh?" Layla grinned, tossing her designer handbag onto a cream leather sofa. "Told you it'd be worth it." Elena tried not to gape. The suite was bigger than her mum's entire house. The fridge was stocked with champagne, the wardrobes filled with luxury clothes borrowed from boutiques. It was intoxicating, a world she had only ever seen in glossy magazines. But what unsettled her was the company. 3 men lounged in the living room, 2 Emiratis in crisp white kanduras and 1 Brit, a slick man in his 30s named Adrian Cross. They all greeted Layla like an old friend. When introduced to Elena, their smiles were polite but watchful, as if weighing her up. She told herself it was harmless, just wealthy friends of Layla's, just hospitality. But a seed of unease took root that night. The following days blurred into a haze of rooftop bars, designer malls, and fast cars. Everywhere they went, Adrian seemed to know someone. Doors opened, velvet ropes lifted, and Elena was swept along. But she noticed things Layla didn't, or perhaps refused to. The whispered conversations in corners. The black bags exchanged discreetly. The way Adrian always insisted on paying for everything, brushing off any attempt at thanks. "You're too uptight," Layla teased when Elena questioned it. "Relax. You sound like my mum." Elena tried. She let herself dance until dawn in gold-lit clubs, let herself be photographed by strangers who tagged her on Instagram with captions like Dubai Angels. She laughed, she drank, she posed. But beneath the laughter was a tightening knot of guilt. She thought of her mum, working long shifts back home, scraping together money for bills. Would Kathleen be proud of her right now? Or ashamed? On the fifth night, everything changed. It was almost dawn when Adrian called Elena into the penthouse kitchen. His tone was friendly, casual, too casual. "Listen, Elena," he began, pouring himself a whiskey. "I need a small favor. Nothing complicated." She hesitated. "What kind of favor?" Adrian leaned on the counter, his smile sharp. "Just take this case to a friend. It's on your way tomorrow. Don't worry, it's nothing dangerous. Just paperwork." He slid a sleek black briefcase toward her. Something inside her screamed no. Her instincts, sharpened from years of studying law, told her this was wrong. She could almost hear her professors lecturing about willful ignorance and the dangers of crossing legal lines abroad. But Layla appeared at the doorway, rolling her eyes. "Don't be dramatic, babe. It's fine. Adrian helps us, we help him. That's how it works here." Elena stared at the case. Heavy, silent, ominous. She should have walked away. She should have refused. Should have packed her bags and booked the next flight home. Instead, she nodded. Just once. Just this time. That decision would follow her forever. It happened fast. Elena had barely stepped out of the taxi when the police surrounded her. Black uniforms, rifles, barking commands in Arabic. The briefcase was wrenched from her hands, snapped open, and inside, neatly wrapped packages of white powder. The world tilted. She tried to explain, her voice breaking. "It's not mine. I didn't. Please listen." But her words were drowned out, her passport seized, her wrists bound in cold metal. The officers didn't care. In Dubai, possession was possession. Intent didn't matter. As they pushed her into the back of a police van, Elena caught sight of Adrian across the street. For the briefest moment, their eyes met. He smiled, and then he vanished into the crowd. For 3 days, Elena was kept in a fluorescent-lit room that smelled of sweat and disinfectant. She was questioned for hours, sometimes in English, sometimes in rapid Arabic she couldn't follow. The words 50 grams echoed in her ears. 50 grams of cocaine. Enough for a life sentence. She tried to explain, over and over. It wasn't hers. She didn't know. She was tricked. But the officers only laughed, tapping the case file as if her protests were a rehearsed script. Once, she begged them to let her call her mother. The officer smiled thinly and said, "Later." Later never came. By the 4th night, exhausted and trembling, she signed a document shoved under her nose. It was in Arabic. She didn't understand a word. When she asked what it meant, the officer shrugged. Just routine. It wasn't. She had just signed her confession. The courthouse looked more like a palace than a place of law. White marble columns glared under the desert sun, and fountains whispered outside as though mocking the fear inside. Elena was marched through its doors in shackles, her wrists red and raw. She wore a plain beige prison uniform, her hair tied back with a rubber band. She had not slept properly in weeks. Inside the courtroom, air conditioning hummed. Rows of wooden benches were filled with strangers. Officials, guards, interpreters, none of whom would meet her eyes. She looked around desperately for a lawyer, anyone who might fight for her. But the man assigned to her case was someone she had only met once. A hired stranger, expressionless. already flipping through paperwork as if she were just another case in a long, boring day. Her stomach twisted. She had studied law. She knew how the process was supposed to work. The presumption of innocence, the right to defense, the careful weighing of evidence. But this wasn't Liverpool. This wasn't England. This was Dubai. And here, the outcome was already decided. The judge swept into the chamber wearing flowing robes, his face unreadable. The court clerk began rattling through the charges in rapid Arabic. Elena's translator leaned toward her and whispered in broken English, "Possession, distribution, 50 grams cocaine, maximum punishment, life." Her throat closed. "Life. I didn't," she began, but the translator silenced her with a raised hand. "Shoo. Wait." But waiting was all she did. Her lawyer spoke briefly, mumbling in Arabic. She couldn't understand. She had prepared notes. She had begged to speak, to explain what had happened. But no one asked her. No one cared. When she finally caught fragments of translation, it was distorted. She admits she carried the drugs. She was aware. She signed confession. Her pulse hammered. "That's not what I said. That's not true." She shook her head violently, whispering to the translator, "No! Tell him I didn't know." The translator shrugged. Too late. The trial lasted less than 2 hours. When the judge returned after a short recess, the courtroom fell silent. He read out a string of Arabic phrases, his voice steady, detached, as if reciting a weather report. Elena clutched the edge of the wooden dock, her knuckles white. The translator leaned in. "Guilty. Life imprisonment. Fine. 400,000 dirhams." Her body went cold. No, that's wrong. I didn't. Please, I didn't." Her voice cracked, echoing through the chamber. But the guards were already moving toward her, snapping her wrists back into chains. As they dragged her away, she locked eyes with the judge. His gaze was blank, distant, as though she were nothing more than a file to be closed. It was over, just like that. Back in her holding cell, Elena pressed her forehead against the iron bars, sobbing until her throat was raw. Other prisoners stared silently, their faces a gallery of pity, resignation, and fear. The next morning, she was told she would be moved to Al-Haddar Central Prison. The guards gave no explanation. They didn't need to. Everyone knew Al-Haddar's reputation. By the time the prison van pulled up outside its high, sand-colored walls, Elena felt as though she had been swallowed whole by the desert itself. A row of watchtowers loomed overhead, rifles glinting. Razor wire crowned the walls. The gates opened slowly, groaning like some ancient beast preparing to consume her. Inside, the stench of sweat, decay, and despair hit her like a wave. Women in faded uniforms shuffled past with hollow eyes. The sound of clanging doors echoed endlessly down concrete corridors. This was her new home. For life. That first night in Al-Haddar, Elena lay on the floor of her cell, surrounded by 6 other women who barely spoke English. The heat was suffocating, the single fan overhead long broken. She could hear rats scuttling in the darkness, their claws scratching against the concrete. She closed her eyes and tried to remember home. Her mum's voice, the smell of fresh bread from the corner bakery, the sound of rain on the windows of their little terrace house. But the memories slipped away, replaced by the image of Adrian Cross's smile as the police dragged her off the street. That smile haunted her, because somewhere deep down she knew this was never an accident. She had been set up, and she was going to find out why. The first thing Elena learned inside Al-Haddar prison was that nothing belonged to her. Not her bed, not her food, not even her silence. The guards barked orders in Arabic, their batons slapping against iron bars like punctuation marks. The inmates followed an unspoken code. Do not complain, do not cry, do not draw attention. Meals came in dented metal trays, watery lentil stew, stale bread, sometimes bruised fruit. Drinking water was rationed, warm, and always tasted faintly of rust. Every day, new arrivals stumbled through the gates. Prostitutes, drug mules, thieves, political dissidents. Their eyes all carried the same story. Hope had abandoned them here. Elena forced herself to adapt quickly. She learned to eat fast before others took her share, to guard her sleeping spot against stronger women, to keep her back to the wall. But even as she tried to disappear into the prison's shadows, whispers followed her. The English girl. The one with the cocaine. She has money, family, foreign connections. In Al-Haddar, whispers could kill. Elena's cell was a gallery of broken lives. Rashida, a Syrian woman with eyes like ash, who had once been a nurse before being accused of aiding rebels. She spoke little but carried herself with quiet dignity. Soraya, a fiery Iranian inmate whose laughter often disguised her fury. She claimed she was innocent too, though everyone in Al-Haddar said that. Amira, a young maid from the Philippines, caught stealing jewelry from her employer. She clung to Elena like a sister, terrified of the older prisoners. These women became Elena's reluctant family. They shared scraps of food, whispered secrets at night, and warned her of the dangers within. The rivalries, the betrayals, the punishments. "Trust no one," Rashida murmured one night, her voice sharp as broken glass. "This place eats trust." Elena nodded, but deep inside, she knew she couldn't survive alone. The first time Elena saw a beating, she understood what fear truly was. A young African inmate had argued with a guard about food. The response was swift and merciless. Batons rained down until her screams turned into silence. When they dragged her back into the cell block, her face was a swollen mask of blood. Elena couldn't look away. She pressed her palms into her knees, trembling, realizing how fragile her own body was in this place. That night, Soraya whispered, "This is their game. They want us afraid. Afraid people are easy to control." Elena didn't reply. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the sound of bones breaking. She knew she was already afraid. Weeks passed. Days bled into nights, marked only by the clang of metal doors. Elena's body grew thinner, her hair dull, her spirit frayed. Then, one morning, a guard thrust an envelope through the bars. Her hands shook as she tore it open. It was from her mother. Kathleen's handwriting curved across the page, desperate, loving, breaking. "My darling girl, we are fighting for you. I will never stop. I promise you that. I've written to MPs, to the embassy, to anyone who will listen. I've started a fundraiser too, though they tried to take it down. Don't give up. Please don't give up. I love you always. Mom." Elena pressed the paper to her chest, tears spilling down her face. For the first time in weeks, she felt something pierce the fog of despair. Hope. But hope was dangerous here. That night, Rashida warned her quietly, "Be careful who sees that letter. Family means money. Money means targets." And she was right. Already, some inmates watched Elena with sharper eyes. A month into her sentence, Elena noticed a new inmate in the courtyard. She was older, with sharp cheekbones and a gaze that lingered too long. Her name was Layla Hassan, though the guards seemed unusually respectful when addressing her. Rumors whispered through the prison that Layla had once worked for Dubai's police, before she was accused of corruption and locked away. Layla approached Elena one afternoon, her voice low. "You don't belong here," she said in fluent English. Elena stiffened. "None of us do." Layla's lips curved into a thin smile. "Some of us, yes. But you were placed here. By someone who wanted you gone." The words sent ice through Elena's veins. She thought of Adrian Cross, the briefcase, the smile. Layla leaned closer. "If you want to survive, you need allies. And I can give you answers." Elena didn't know whether to trust her. But in a place where trust was currency, sometimes even lies could buy survival. Layla proved resourceful. She smuggled Elena scraps of paper, stolen pens, whispered instructions. "Write everything down," she urged. "Every detail you remember about that night, that man, the case. Details are weapons." So Elena began to write. Each night, she scrawled in tiny handwriting, hiding the pages under a loose brick in the wall. She wrote about Adrian, about Layla, about the briefcase, about the way the police had appeared so quickly, as if waiting for her. The more she wrote, the clearer it became. This had been a setup. And if Adrian had set her up, then someone in Dubai's underworld, or higher, wanted her silenced. But why? One night, as she tucked the latest page into the wall, she realized something terrifying. If Layla knew this much about her, then maybe Layla already knew the answer. Weeks later, Layla made her offer. "I can tell you who betrayed you," she whispered in the yard. "I can tell you why. But everything comes at a price." Elena swallowed. "What do you want?" Layla's eyes glittered. "When your mother sends money, when the embassy comes, share it. Protection costs. Truth costs more." Elena hesitated. Part of her screamed that she was being manipulated. But another part, desperate, starving for answers, wanted to believe. Because if Layla truly knew who had destroyed her life, then maybe, just maybe, there was still a way out. Back in Liverpool, the rain never seemed to stop. Kathleen Warren sat at the small kitchen table of their terraced house, staring at her daughter's photograph taped to the wall. Elena's auburn hair gleamed in the picture, her smile carefree, her eyes full of a future that now seemed unreachable. Kathleen hadn't slept properly since the call came. First, it was the embassy, their voices clinical, rehearsed. "Your daughter has been detained in Dubai." Later, the devastating truth. "She has been sentenced to life imprisonment." Every night, Kathleen lay awake, hearing echoes of her daughter's childhood. Elena's laughter as a little girl, her voice reading out loud from law books, her promises. "Mom, one day I'll buy you a house with a garden." Now those promises were ashes. Kathleen clutched her tea, cold and untouched, and whispered to herself, "I will not lose her. Not like this." The idea of the fundraiser had come in desperation. Kathleen barely had enough for bills, let alone flights to Dubai or legal fees. So she wrote, pouring her soul into the appeal. "My daughter has been given a life sentence in Dubai for a mistake that wasn't truly hers. I am begging for help, to pay for lawyers, to visit her, to fight for her freedom. Anything helps. Please." Within hours, donations trickled in. Strangers from across the country left messages. "Stay strong. Justice will come." Sending prayers. But as the total climbed, so did the backlash. Anonymous comments sneered. "She knew what she was doing. Why should we pay for criminals?" Then, after a week, the platform took the fundraiser down. Violation of guidelines. Kathleen sat in front of her computer, numb, watching the page vanish. Almost £2,000 gone in a click. She buried her face in her hands and screamed. It didn't take long for the media to arrive. First, a local paper. Then, national outlets. Cameras appeared on her doorstep, voices demanding, "Do you believe your daughter is innocent?" Kathleen hesitated. Should she tell them about Adrian, about Layla, about the setup Elena had described in letters? Or would that only dig the hole deeper? She chose her words carefully, her voice trembling on national television. "My daughter is not a criminal. She made a mistake, yes, but she doesn't deserve to rot in a foreign prison. She is only 23. Please, if anyone can help, we need you." The segment aired that evening. Overnight, her phone flooded with messages, some supportive, others cruel. But in the chaos, one message stood out. It came from an unlisted number. "I know who framed your daughter. Meet me. No police." Desperation drove Kathleen to London. She stood outside the heavy wooden doors of Parliament, clutching a folder of documents. Elena's letters, embassy notes, photographs. She had written to MPs, pleaded with government officials. Most sent polite, useless replies. "We are monitoring the situation. We cannot interfere with the legal processes of another country." But one MP, a sharp-eyed woman named Catherine Doyle, agreed to see her. Kathleen sat across from her in a cramped office, her voice breaking as she explained. "She's just a girl, a student. She didn't know what was in that case. Please, you must do something." Doyle listened, nodding slowly. "We'll apply pressure through the embassy. But you need to understand, the UAE does not bend easily, especially not with drugs." Kathleen gripped the MP's hand. Then we'll make them bend. That night, Kathleen kept her secret meeting. The man who approached her in the car park wore a hood, his face hidden. His voice was low, urgent. Your daughter didn't just carry drugs. She carried evidence. Evidence tied to powerful people. That's why she was arrested so quickly. They needed her silenced. Kathleen's pulse quickened. What evidence? The man shook his head. Names, records, deals. If she speaks, she dies. If she stays silent, she rots. Either way, they win. Before she could ask more, he was gone, swallowed by the shadows. Kathleen stood trembling in the rain, clutching her daughter's photograph to her chest. If this was true, Elena's case wasn't just about drugs. It was about corruption, and corruption had teeth. That night, Kathleen sat at the kitchen table again, staring at the flickering candle she had lit for her daughter. She thought of Elena alone in that hellhole, clinging to scraps of hope. She thought of the man's warning, the way his words had cut deeper than any headline, and she made a silent oath. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much power you have. I will drag the truth into the light. I will bring my daughter home. The flame wavered, but it did not die, and neither would she. 2 weeks into her sentence at Al Hatter, Elena received a letter that changed everything. It was smuggled in, folded tightly inside the seam of a blanket delivered by another prisoner. The handwriting was hurried, shaky. Elena, you were never meant to survive this. Cross set you up. Layla knew. They gave your name to the police before you even landed. The drugs weren't the only thing. They needed the ledger out of the country. You carried it. Check the lining of the suitcase they took. Don't trust anyone. Even in here. A friend. Her chest tightened as she read the words over and over. Ledger? She remembered the suitcase, the one Adrian had asked her to keep safe. Heavy, far heavier than clothes alone. She thought it had just been cocaine. But this letter suggested something else. Something worth more. And suddenly, her mind snapped back to the image of Adrian's smile the night she was arrested. It hadn't been arrogance. It had been victory. That night, while guards patrolled lazily outside, Elena whispered to Layla through the cell bars. Did you know? About Adrian? About the ledger? Layla's silence stretched into eternity. Finally, she whispered back, her voice raw. Yes, I knew. Elena's breath caught. And you didn't tell me? Layla's face was pale in the moonlight. I couldn't. They threatened my brother. If I warned you, they would have killed him. Adrian gave me no choice. The words sliced through Elena like knives. Her closest friend. Her confidant. Her betrayer. You set me up? Elena whispered, shaking. You handed me to them. Layla reached through the bars, her fingers trembling. I'm sorry. I thought maybe they would let you go. But Adrian wanted you gone. You know too much. Elena pulled away, tears burning her eyes. Trust was a currency she no longer possessed. Rumors inside Al Hatter spread like fire in dry brush. One evening, a fellow prisoner, a sharp-eyed woman known only as Zara, slid next to Elena during mealtime. I hear you carried something, Zara murmured. Something powerful. Documents. A ledger. Elena stiffened. Why are you telling me this? Because, Zara said, leaning close. I know where it is, and I know what's in it. Elena's heart pounded. Tell me. But Zara only smiled. Not yet. Information has a price. You survive long enough, maybe you'll learn. Elena clenched her fists. She hated the prison's cruel economy. Secrets traded like cigarettes, survival bartered for scraps of trust. But one thing was clear. The ledger wasn't gone. And if she found it, it might be her only weapon. 2 weeks later, Elena was summoned. The guards escorted her to a sterile interview room, where a man in a suit waited. British embassy official, pale and sweating. He shook her hand with forced politeness. Elena, he said quietly, we're doing everything we can. Your mother is campaigning tirelessly. She leaned forward. You need to find my suitcase. The one I was carrying when they arrested me. There's something inside, a ledger. That's why they set me up. The man froze. His eyes flickered nervously toward the guard at the door. I'll note it down. But Elena saw it, the twitch of fear, the hesitation. He already knew. When he left, she sat in silence, chains heavy on her wrists. If the embassy knew and still kept quiet, then Adrian's reach extended further than she could imagine. That night, Elena returned to her cell to find a smear of blood on her blanket. Not hers, not her cellmate's. Words scrawled in crimson. "Stop asking about the ledger." Her stomach lurched. Her cellmates backed away, terrified. Elena stared at the warning until her vision blurred. She wasn't just a prisoner now. She was a target. Back in Liverpool, Kathleen sat hunched over her laptop, eyes scanning a string of leaked files sent anonymously to her inbox. Among them was a scanned document, a customs record from Dubai airport, time-stamped the day of Elena's arrest. Attached was an inventory list, hastily redacted. But the black ink hadn't fully concealed the words. With effort, she adjusted the brightness until faint letters bled through. Ledger of transactions, cross import, export. Her hands shook. Cross. Adrian Cross. Kathleen realized then that Elena wasn't lying, wasn't exaggerating. She was in the middle of something far larger, a web of corruption reaching into governments, businesses, maybe even the embassy itself. And if Kathleen had stumbled onto these files, then she too had painted a target on her back. In Al-Hatter, Elena lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling. Her chest ached with fear, but beneath the fear was something sharper. Resolve. Adrian thought she was broken. The system thought she was finished. But she had the truth now, however fragile. A ledger that could topple him. A mother who refused to be silenced. Allies hidden among enemies. And she swore, as the desert winds howled outside the prison walls, she would not die here. She would not rot away. She would expose them all, even if it killed her. It began with a scream. A prisoner stabbed a guard in the corridor, and chaos erupted through Al-Hatter like wildfire. Bars rattled. Women shouted. Alarms shrieked. In the chaos, Zara appeared at Elena's cell door. Her eyes were fierce, her voice urgent. "Now, if you want the truth, follow me." Elena's pulse thundered. She hesitated only a second before slipping into the storm. Smoke filled the air. Guards rushed past, swinging batons, dragging prisoners by their hair. Elena kept close to Zara, ducking through hidden passageways, until they reached an old storage room. Zara knelt quickly, prying open a loose brick. From inside, wrapped in plastic, she pulled out a slim black book. "The ledger," she whispered. Elena's breath caught. Inside the ledger, pages of neat handwriting filled the book. Transactions, coded accounts, shipments. But what froze Elena's blood were the names. Politicians, businessmen, embassy officials. And at the top, bold and unmistakable, Adrian Cross. She skimmed faster, her hands shaking. Payments to officials for silence. Routes mapped for drug shipments disguised as medical supplies. Even a note referencing potential liabilities, with her own name underlined. She wasn't an accident. She was insurance. A scapegoat built into the system. Her head spun. This book could bring down giants. Or bury her forever. The door slammed open. Layla stood there, a guard's gun in her trembling hands. Her face was pale, eyes glistening. "Elena," she whispered. "Give it to me." Elena froze. "You're still working for him." Layla shook her head violently. "No, I just want this to end. If I give them the ledger, they'll let you go. They promised." "They'll never let me go," Elena said, her voice trembling. "They'll kill us both. Don't you see? This book is the only chance." Layla's hand quivered on the trigger. "Please, don't make me choose." Outside, sirens wailed. Guards shouted orders in Arabic. The riot was collapsing under a storm of gunfire and batons. Elena held the ledger tight against her chest. She looked at Layla, at the girl who had betrayed her and now begged for salvation. And in that heartbeat, she saw two futures. One where she handed it over, condemning herself to silence but maybe sparing her mother's life. Another where she kept it, knowing it would mark her forever as a target, hunted inside and out. Her chest heaved. Her mind screamed. Finally, she whispered, "I won't die for nothing," and she ran. Through corridors slick with blood and smoke, Elena sprinted, clutching the ledger. Guards shouted. Bullets ricocheted off concrete. She ducked into a maintenance shaft, crawling through darkness, the book digging into her ribs. Behind her, she heard Layla screaming her name, but she didn't look back. Finally, she burst into the open air of the yard, searchlights blinding her. She lifted her hands in surrender, the ledger hidden under her shirt. Guards swarmed her, dragging her to the ground. A rifle pressed into her skull. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "Mom, I've got the truth." Days later, Kathleen Warren, no sender. She clicked. Attached was a full scan of the ledger. Every name, every transaction, every betrayal. Her hands trembled as she scrolled. Tears streamed down her face. Somehow Elena had gotten it out. And now the world would see. Back in El Hatter, Elena sat in her cell, bruised and bloodied, staring at the cracked wall. She didn't know if the ledger had reached safety. She didn't know if Adrian still hunted her. She didn't know if she would live another week. But she knew one thing. She had taken back her story. She had given her mother the weapon to fight. And even if she died inside these walls, the truth would not. Months later, headlines across Europe blazed with scandal. British businessman linked to drug empire. Embassy officials implicated in UAE smuggling ring. Mother of jailed student demands government action. Kathleen stood on her doorstep, reporters clamoring, flashbulbs exploding. She held the ledger aloft, her voice strong, unyielding. "This is the proof. This is why my daughter is in prison. And this is why I will never stop until she's free." Somewhere in the desert, behind bars and barbed wire, Elena smiled faintly in the dark. The truth was out. And sometimes that was more dangerous than any weapon.